Welcome to the channel. I'm your host Carshénah with versefilmsproductions, and this is SCREAMTOBER. I'll be doing a video a day for 31 days up into Halloween, so let's get started.
Welcome to versefilmsproductions annual SCREAMTOBER here on our horror channel. I'm your host, Carshénah, and I've got 31 days to get you in the mood for Halloween. Join me as I share a video a day with a new theme each week that you will find scary, haunting, and sometimes just plain fun. Let's get into it. We end our first week of SCREAMTOBER on a high note. Thanks for joining in to watch our Vintage Horror Week. Keep watching as we continue the fun. Here's a quick update on where you can find these horror classics for your Halloween season. Amazon Prime is streaming all of the Universal and other monster movie classics as of this recording, the 7th day in our SCREAMTOBER. Dracula, The Invisible Man, The Wolfman, The Mummy, The Son of Dracula, The Ghoul, House on Haunted Hill, Nosferatu, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which also features Bela Lugosi as the original Dracula. The only three in the collection of monsters are Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein, and Creature from the Black Lagoon have not made it yet to stream for free. If you have a subscription, they are still available to buy or rent. Now, back to our last day of Vintage Horror Week with the ultimate all-time favorite, Dracula, 1931, starring the Hungarian legend himself, Bela Lugosi. Transylvanian vampire Count Dracula bends a naive real estate agent to his will, then takes up residence at a London estate where he sleeps in his coffin by day and searches for potential victims by night. I bid you welcome. I never drink wine. Children of the night, what music they make. And of course, I am Dracula. Are memorable lines that resonate throughout horror films, literature, art, etc. throughout the 20th century because of a landmark film made in 1931 starring Bela Lugosi and directed by Tod Browning. This film was the birth of the horror film as we know it. Its importance cannot be underestimated. Dracula is a wonderful film for so many reasons. The film is, by today's standards, very antiquated. It has almost no soundtrack, stage acting for the most part, limited special effects, and a slow pacing. It has long parts of little action and lots of chat. It shows little while leaving much to one's imagination, a plus for those like myself that are good at envisioning what is not shown. With all this not going forward, why is Dracula such a classic? Why is it considered to be such a great film and a great horror film? The answer is that even with all these flaws, and bear in mind, some of these flaws are not flaws for all, the film offers a rich story in an eerie, atmospheric way. Bela Lugosi was Dracula. He was the model for so many vampires to come. His gesturing, his deliberation and speech, his facial movements all created a vampire never to be forgotten. Lugosi is the real genius of the film. Browning created a movie and a setting imagined and conjured on a screen. Browning was the man behind the camera that created the cobweb stairs of the Dracula castle and the squalid emptiness of the crypt. He created the ghoulish female vampires thirsting for blood. Dracula is not just a film to see, it is film history and should be viewed with that in mind and not put under a microscope of today's languishing tastes. The twist is that this Dracula looks nothing like Stoker's creation. Read the actual book by Bram Stoker. Lugosi, either through his work with the playwrights or later at Universal with Browning, devised the most insidious form the character would ever take. A handsome, courtly, well-groomed, civilized aristocrat, so gracious and attractive that he projected an aura of well-being over the viewer. This was worlds away from the Murnau Max Schreck approach of head-on abomination in Nosferatu. Glorious black and white, the lighting, scenery, and mood music should share equal billing with the great direction of Todd Browning. This movie leaves an impression that lasts a lifetime. Wonderful supporting cast includes David Manners, Edward Van Sloan, Helen Chandler, and Dwight Fry. The story is known to most. Solicitor Renfield, Dwight Fry, arrives at Count Dracula's castle at night after a harrowing ride through the Carpathian Mountains in Eastern Europe. Renfield enters Castle Dracula to finalize the transferal of Carfax Abbey in London to Count Dracula, who is in actuality a vampire. Despite prior warnings by the nearby locals, he is greeted by Dracula, who, unknown to Renfield, is a vampire. Upon arrival, he pricks his finger, causing it to bleed, which visibly excites Dracula until he spies the crucifix hanging around Renfield's neck. Renfield is drugged by the eerily hypnotic Count and turned into one of his thralls, protecting him during his sea voyage to London. When the ship arrives, only Renfield remains on the boat, now seemingly a lunatic and a slave to the Count. He is hospitalized while Dracula becomes entranced by a woman named Mina, played by Helen Chandler, who is engaged to John Harker, played by David Manners. After sucking the blood and turning the young Lucy Weston into a vampire, Dracula turns his attention to her friend Mina Seward, daughter of Dr. Seward, who then calls in a specialist, Dr. Van Helsing, to diagnose the sudden deterioration of Mina's health. As circumstances grow stronger, Professor Van Helsing, played by Edward Van Sloan, becomes convinced that the Count is indeed a vampire and that he must be destroyed. Van Helsing tries to prepare Mina's fiancé, John Harker, and Dr. Seward for what is to come and the measures that will have to be taken to prevent Mina from becoming one of the undead. Let's look at the star himself. Bela Lugosi was born Bela Ferencesco Blasco on October 20th, 1882, in Lugos, Hungary, Austria-Hungary, now Lugos, Romania. He was the youngest of 4 children during World War I. He volunteered and was commissioned as an infantry lieutenant and was wounded 3 times. Served in the Austro-Hungarian army during World War I. He later recounted in stories on film sets about his experiences, which included acting as a hangman. He also said that at one point, he hid in a mass grave of corpses to escape death. After being wounded 3 times, he was discharged while apparently feigning concussion, causing insanity. A distinguished stage actor in his native Hungary, he began his stage career in 1901 and started appearing in films during World War I, fleeing to Germany in 1919 as a result of his left-wing political activity. He basically organized an actors' union. In 1920, he immigrated to the U.S. at the port of New Orleans after becoming a sailor on a merchant ship. He made a living as a character actor, shooting to fame when he played Count Dracula in the legendary 1927 Broadway stage adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel. It ran for 3 years and was subsequently and memorably filmed by Todd Browning in 1931, establishing Lugosi as one of the screen's greatest personifications of pure evil. Also in 1931, he became a U.S. citizen, legally changing his name to Bela Lugosi from Blasco. He added an I to the end of the name of Lugos, the town in which he was born. Sadly, his reputation rapidly declined, mainly because he had been blacklisted by the main studios and had no choice but to accept any part and script handed to him, and ended up playing parodies of his greatest role in low-grade Poverty Row films. Due to shady blacklisting among the top Hollywood studio executives, he refused to sell out or to compromise his integrity, and therefore ended his career working for the legendary, and I mean worst director of all time, Edward D. Wood Jr., or Ed Wood. Lugosi helped organize the Screen Actors Guild in the mid-30s, joining as member number 28. Bela Lugosi died of a heart attack on August 16, 1956. He was buried in a Dracula costume, including a cape, but not the one used in the 1931 film, contrary to popular but unfounded rumors. His trademark, black slicked back hair, thick Hungarian accent, intense hypnotic gaze, and dramatic pauses, renowned for treating even the most ridiculous of material with immense respect and his aggressive work ethic. Some trivia about Bela. His performance in Tod Browning's Dracula in 1931 created such a sensation that he reportedly received more fan mail from females than even Clark Gable. That was a big deal back in the day. He pronounced his Christian name Bela, as it is traditionally, not Bella. Was a philatelist, which is a stamp collector. As such, he would have been thrilled to know that he himself ended up gracing 2 U.S. stamps, pictured on one of a set of 5 32-cent U.S. commemorative postage stamps issued September 30th, 1997, celebrating famous movie monsters. His Los Angeles home was purchased by Johnny Depp, who played his friend Ed Wood in Ed Wood in 1994, the movie. Bela was the model for the Disney demon Chernbog and Fantasia in 1940, Night on Bald Mountain, spooky sequence. He was photographed in evil demon-like poses for the animators to draw the demon character. The end result, on screen, unmistakably shows typical Lugosi traits, expressions, and mannerisms. Bela wasn't fond of schmoozing, and for that reason did not attend Hollywood parties. He said, quote, "Life was too short for that," end quote, and he wouldn't waste his time. Instead, Lugosi preferred to get together in intimate, small gatherings at his home with Hungarian artisans and working crew from his films, whom he often invited to dinner. Privately, he struggled with his dependency upon morphine, a drug he was given to deal with leg pain from his war injuries. However, tabloid reports erroneously presented him as a drug addict. There is a significant difference between being physically and clinically dependent upon a drug and being addicted to it. The latter denotes the presence of a morbid mental want that is absent in a medical dependency, which is a psychological need. Further immortalized in the song Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus, which was featured in The Hunger in 1983 and went on to become a dance mainstay at goth dance clubs in the 1980s and even to this day. The lyrics of the song described him in his Dracula costume along with "undead, undead, undead" being chanted during the song's chorus. There are 2 flowers named after him: Bela Lugosi, daylily, plum-colored petals with a yellow center, and the Dracula Bela Lugosi orchid, yellowish with dark stripes all across its 3 petals. In spite of his cinematic association with the dark side and portraying various evil characters, he was a devout Catholic and was buried at the Holy Cross, a Catholic cemetery in Culver City, California. In October of 2024, just this month, he was honored as Turner Classic Movies Star of the Month. Thanks for watching our first week into Screamtober, Vintage Horror Week. Make sure to catch all the fun next week as we start with Kids Horror Week. Take care.